in order at 1:02. We have 4 committee members here, which makes a quorum. Our 5th member, Steve Jacobs, of course, was recently elected to the board of directors and is no longer, of course, a member of the committee. We have two other individuals watching on Microsoft Team. Welcome to the meeting. There'll be a public comments part here in another couple of minutes, which will welcome any comments. I believe, Susan, you're a member of the media. If I forget at the end, if you have any questions, please step in on me. Okay.
Yes, sir, I am. Thank you.
Okay. First up is the approval of the agenda. I have a couple of items that I want to change on the agenda. One's to delete an item, and the other is to add an item. First of all, to delete, I'm asking that we delete the first unfinished business item, M08. The reason for that being on the agenda is that that was a discussion item. Our committee had recommended to the board a couple of board meetings ago that this resolution regarding association manuals be deleted or rescinded. And it was discussed at a recent board meeting. However, there were some questions about that, in particular from Director Doug Parks, who wanted some further consideration involving, in particular, the control of association financial manuals. At the present time, there are two financial manuals. One's a policy manual, the other is a procedures manual, and he may have some concerns about how to continue to control them if this resolution is in fact rescinded. Doug had indicated an interest in appearing at our next meeting to discuss it with the committee. However, Doug is not available, and although he could have possibly been online, but I see that he is not. So and I in an email message to him, I indicated that we would defer this item to the next board meeting in anticipation of him being able to participate at that time. So that I would like to have us omit or delete from the agenda. And the other item is an addition under new business. It could very well be unfinished business as well, but it's to the future of the committee. In particular, we have now one actual vacancy that we anticipated as possibly occurring, and that's Steve going on the board of directors and no longer being eligible to be a member of the committee. The other is that my tenure on the committee will end next month. It will end after the next month meeting, but the mid-month, toward the end of the month rather, I will no longer be a member of the committee, and that will be another vacancy. And Bob's term ends in October, and the terms of both of us are that 6-year term limit. We're not eligible for reapplication for another term on the committee, at least not for another year. So the item for addition under new business is the future of the committee, and where we may be going from there, where we can go and where we're not right now going as far as the committee. So those two, the addition and the deletion, I'm asking for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we've got this. Okay, all favor, aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Let me make a note here real quick. Okay, the next item up is the minutes from our July 15th meeting. Anybody have a motion to approve those minutes? The minutes have been previously distributed.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Bob, motion. Laura, seconded. Any comments, discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Okay, let's move into the unfinished business part of the meeting. Let me organize my papers a little bit as we go along. First item up is the B07 petitions resolution. Josh, you can skip over the M08. We've deleted that from the agenda and go to B07. Okay, that looks like that's it. Scroll down a little further, maybe. That's good. Yeah, okay, that's good. Some background on this is that, again, this is another resolution that was reviewed by the board of directors at a recent meeting, perhaps 2 months ago now. It was a regular review. For those of you who are perhaps watching a meeting like this for the first time, we do have a review schedule that is indicated on what we call the governance document review, which is document is not in front of us right now, but it's a listing of all the resolutions and status of them. And we also indicate a review cycle, and the review cycle had come up for B07, and the responsible party for B07 is the board of directors. So we requested a review of this resolution to make sure it's up to date from the board of directors. One of the comments, about the only comment that came up during the board meeting review, was who could submit a petition. And in the bylaws, the only thing it says is a person who submits or circulates the petition. So who is a person? Is that a member? Can that be an agent? It can be somebody virtually unrelated to the association. After we discussed it at our last meeting, we decided that we would take the initiative and make our own proposal as to what we thought should be, if anything, amended in the resolution. And it's that paragraph B, 3B, that's in the resolution. The resolution as it reads now in 3B, initiation of petitions. The petition must identify the person or persons initiating the petition and the person or persons who will represent the petitioner. Normally, this will be the person or persons initiating the petition. Person is not defined either in the resolution nor is it defined in the bylaws provision. And the question again is, can somebody other than a member initiate a petition? In the meeting, in our last meeting, we decided that Steve would draft a change or an amendment to this resolution, this paragraph in particular. Give it to me, I look at it, and then distribute it as at this meeting, distributed as a draft to consider. What you see up there in the red is Steve's proposed amendment to 3B, and I misidentified the color of the font. His is in red. I misidentified the color in the email distribution. It's actually blue, and still I think I said it was green. At any rate, what's there is indicated as the Steve Jim proposal. The second paragraph B there is from the attorney. The question about how to word this, or should we word it as a member or something else, was in fact submitted to the association attorney Jeremy Tucker by Colette, our liaison. And what you see in that second B with the amendments in blue are Jeremy Tucker's recommendation. As I indicated in the email that distributed the materials, our task is to take one or the other of these or amend further what's up there and proceed with a draft first reading, suggest recommendation to the board of directors. So that's the background. I guess one last comment I can make is the way the attorney has worded that does leave it open. He leaves in the normally phrase here. Normally, this will be, he takes out persons and inserts members. In each case, he is showing member or members initiating and proceeding with the petition. He took out persons and makes it members. However, he does leave in there the normally, which leaves open the possibility that someone other than a member could be involved in the petition process. And the last couple of comments that I'm going to make and get this open for discussion is that we do have proxy provisions, limited proxy provisions in our bylaws. And I'm not going to say that a proxy could be held by a non-member, but I don't think that can be foreclosed. It just says proxies. And then the Homeowners Association Act does provide for agent representation of lot owners in homeowners association affairs. So there is a basis of at least some sort, some level for a non-member to participate in various affairs of the association. Anyway, the discussion is basically one or the other, or we amend one or the other and go forward with a draft first reading submittal to the board of directors.
Well, can we start with, we'll start with Steve's, if that's okay. Representative of the petition shall be a member eligible to vote. So under what you just said about agents or proxies. So if somebody's designated a proxy, they get the eligibility to vote. That's what the proxy is all about, right? They're voting on somebody's behalf. And an agent, I'm assuming, if it's authorized by the bylaws, also has some sort of voting power. But if we put the word member in front of it, are we confusing it? In other words, should it say something, if we're going to go with B, should it say a person eligible to, or person or agent eligible to vote?
In both cases, both the, I'm going to call it the Steve draft and the attorney recommendation, they're limiting initiating the petition to a member. Hang on a second here. I don't know that I have the right information. Because the petition has to have the member. Let me, instead of going by memory, let me get the actual bylaws provision out here. We could have started with this to begin with. But.
Or action to be taken.
Okay. Section 4.07 petitions in the bylaws, paragraph A. I'm going to read the third sentence only. The petition shall identify the persons who will represent the petitioners and contain the lot number, address, and so forth. The relevant part we're talking about is the petition shall identify the persons who will represent the petitioners. The question at the board meeting was, can someone other than a member of the association do that representation, the initiation of the petition and the representation of the members? And the intention of both Steve's proposed amendment, and the attorney's recommendation is to limit the actual initiation of the petition, and Steve opens it up to someone other than a member for the future processing of it, even including perhaps representation of the petition before the board in any consideration of going forward with the petition. But the actual initiation of the petition is limited in both cases to a member. Is taking the petition shall identify the person who will represent the petitioners. It's taking that and defining that in a resolution to be a member.
So this is the board's resolution.
This is the board's resolution.
So does the board have the authority to do that?
I'm going to say yes, because the attorney is recommending. His recommending, if we're going to change this, his recommendation is to use member only.
I mean, to me, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It should be somebody with a vested interest in the community, a member, to start it. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So then,
Then as the presentation moves forward, after it's been filed, the petition, then a non-member could assist that member
In
in
some fashion.
presenting their
Presentation.
their presentation, recommendation and all of that, right?
That is the recommendation of Steve.
Mhm.
His or proposed draft. The attorney doesn't go that far.
well, so if you look at what the attorney wrote, the second sentence, which wasn't his original language, that's I think the original language, but it says normally this.
that normally this is the only change that is a part of the only change that the attorney made to an existing sentence is to change persons to members.
Right. So, but the issue I have with that second sentence is it says normally this. So if I were trying to be clear, I wouldn't say this.
Right.
Because that's the next question. Well, what is this? What do you mean by this? So, and I don't even know. What's the intention there? What is this?
And if you're using the word normally, you're assuming there could be an abnormal.
Yeah.
To me,
So-
then you're opening it up to somebody
Yeah.
showing the other side of it.
So you can assume that this is the second part of the previous sentence where he says persons who will represent the petitioners. You could assume, well, that's the this it's talking about. And since the word person is used and not members, then you could make another assumption that it doesn't have to be a member. But we're two assumptions in now, right? So to me, what's there under that short paragraph, the attorney, I don't think that's sufficient to clear up confusion. And Steve's is a little bit longer, but I think Steve's is more clear.
Yes, I would agree with that, I feel like there's more information there.
Yeah.
As to who can initiate the petition, and then who can be used if the petition is accepted, accepted, and you have to present it then and state your case and all that. You then can have assistance from a non-member.
Yeah.
With maybe that specialty, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that if we were to go with Steve's version as our recommendation, we would still need to somehow address what you brought forward, which is that there is a possibility based on our current bylaws that somebody could be eligible to vote and not be a member. So the use of the word member.
Oh, you can't be eligible to vote. You gotta be a member to be eligible to vote.
Well, you brought up proxy, you brought up agent.
Well, yeah.
So they could be does that mean they're a member by proxy or a member by agent?
Or only for that.
The proxy usage in the bylaws is very limited, so I may have distracted us a little bit by using
Okay.
proxy.
Okay, what about the other one, the
Well,
agent?
the HOA Act, you clearly can, at least representation, and I don't have it in front of me, representation in meetings. You can have an agent in fact or attorney in fact or agent representing a member. But I'm saying the only reason I brought that up is that there are instances in which someone in a representative capacity can participate. Now, the way it's written now would be if someone other than a member initiated a petition there would have to be a decision made. Okay, is this person really, I'll say, qualified to be doing this under our bylaws? Right now, it only says the petition, wherever it is here, petition shall identify the persons or person. And that's all it says. Okay,
Yeah.
that's why it came up in the meeting, I believe it could be said. Excuse me, say Colette, I want to recognize we have Colette here in the meeting. I just looked up and saw that
Yeah,
she's
sorry I was late. I was in a meeting with John and it went over.
okay. Go ahead. Just to back up very briefly, we amended the agenda. We took out the M08 because Doug is not able to participate.
Okay,
That was on there for Doug's participation. So we amended the agenda to delete that. And then under new business, we added a future committee considerations, taking into account in particular, we're down one vacancy right now, or we have one vacancy. And then of course we have additional vacancies coming here in short order. That's an additional new business item on the agenda.
okay,
So we've skipped over, deleted M08. We're now in the B07
okay,
discussion. Anyway,
okay, thank you. Sorry again for being late.
I interrupted the discussion there. I don't want to overemphasize the proxy agent situation, other than the way the bylaws are written, it leaves that open. And it leaves it open for having to make decisions as it occurs, or if it occurs. By amending the bylaws to make it member, then the decision is made.
Is that your edit there where it says in good standing? Or was that what it said before? Oh, somebody changed it from in good standing to eligible to vote.
I'm not sure that that's quite.
Yeah. That-
Yeah, because it says deleted, right?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was,
that's right. That's right. We took out in good standing and put an eligible vote. That in good standing is an old term that's no longer used.
Right, okay.
right, that makes sense. But I think, what we're really trying to achieve is to make it crystal clear. So if somebody submits the petition, it's consistent with everything that's published to avoid litigation. Because when you have all these ifs, somebody can go in front of a judge and the judge is going to say, what does this mean? What does this mean?
And you
Why
didn't
is it
clarify.
worded like that? And, I'm not a lawyer, but I've dealt a lot with intellectual property. I understand. If you leave a little hole for somebody to get in, the attorneys have a field
They
day.
will, you're right. So now that I'm reading it again, I have another problem with it. So for me, or for my position, just in general, I like Steve's version better. I think it's clear.
Right.
However, is the red intended to replace all of the black, or is the red in addition to the black?
Red and the blue eligible to vote are in addition to the black. The whole
In
thing.
addition to it?
Yeah, the whole
Okay.
thing is the black with the red and the blue
Okay,
and blue marked out.
so the first sentence says petition must identify the persons initiating the petition and the persons who will represent the petitioners. So then Steve's version says the representation of the petitioners shall be a member eligible to vote. So Steve's,
Still have two different.
Steve's edit doesn't address the person initiating the petition. Am I wrong?
Well, I think it kind of does,
The
but
black
it's
stays
not
there.
worded
All that
right.
black
That
stays, doesn't it?
Yeah, but the black says persons.
petition. Petition.
I mean, isn't the goal that whoever initiates it is a member?
Eligible to vote.
That's the way I'm reading it.
Because that's
is-
not what it says, right?
Right, not in the black sentences.
Doesn't say it in the black, but where does it say it in the red?
In the red, that I believe would be his intent when he said the representative of the petitioner shall be a member. That's what he's addressing as the initial, but it doesn't mesh with the first two sentences that then are still in black, because it's identifying the the initiator and the representatives. And the way he used the word representative
Well,
makes
so,
it sound like it's
right.
the second part that he's addressing.
He's way smarter at this than I am, and I'm not an Oxford comma guy. So, because there's no comma after the first black initiating the petition, does that mean that technically the and means that the first part of the sentence and the second part of the sentence are talking about the same person? Therefore, Steve would say, well, then that person, the representative, shall be a member to vote. In other words, the person initiating the petition and representing the petitioners.
So to me, that if the goal was to say the initiating person must be a member, then the representative must be a member, the way I would take that. But the use of the term of representative of the petitioners in Steve's part, that to me doesn't address the part where we should have the word initiating in there as well. So maybe is it a combined, like you said, initiating and representative? Because then that's confusing then, because at the bottom of his edit says then any person who assists the representative. All right, wait a minute. Any person who assists the representative does not have to be a member.
Right.
So it's saying the initial, he is saying then the initial person for the petition and whoever is also going to represent the petitioner, that person or persons should be a member, but anybody who assists then after that doesn't, right? Or maybe it's not as clear as we thought it was the
Yeah.
first time.
So I'm thinking that first
I mean, you get the gist of it. I like what we're trying to explain, but I think we need to fine tune it maybe.
I think the first sentence of the red, the representative of the petition shall be a member eligible to vote. I think what was intended, and maybe what it should be reworded to say, is the person initiating the petition shall be a member eligible to
Yeah.
vote. And then the rest of it makes sense to me.
Yeah, how about the person initiating the petition and representing the petitioners? Include both those, the initiation and representation.
Yeah. Because that's what the sentence in
And
black is
delete-
saying.
delete the
They're
first-
addressing both right
Delete
there.
the first two, delete the second sentence at least. Oh, yeah, you can,
Well, because then it goes on to say, well, normally this will be the person initiating the petition, the representative. What's the difference, by the way? I understand the person initiating the petition, but who's the person representing the petition?
Maybe
Why is that different?
I want to submit a petition, but I don't like public speaking and things like that. And so I'm going to say, would you love to talk? Would you be my representative? Is that where it's clarifying that representative for me needs to be a member too?
I think we talked at the last meeting, what we were talking about was if you want to bring somebody in that has the skill level or expertise to explain why you want to do it, either an attorney or a contractor at your expense, you want to bring that
Some sort of
person
subject
in.
matter expert.
Yeah, that we include that as part of it. So that's, if they submit a petition, that person's responsible for it, or people, whoever signs it, that group, and they have the right to bring somebody in to present to the board. And obviously, if they disagree with the board, then when it becomes a legal issue, it's totally different.
let me try to answer one.
Go ahead.
Two questions. In the petition process, the first step is you gotta start a petition and get the necessary signatures.
Correct.
Then it goes to the secretary to verify that this is a valid petition, right number of signatures, and the question is one eligible for being a petition process. And the secretary, assuming all of that's in order, secretary accepts the petition, then the board has to have a hearing on the petition, public hearing. And that's where in particular, the representation part comes in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, there may
That's
be,
where we were.
some representation necessary, or
Mhm.
as a petition circulates, somebody to step up and have some comments on it, that's possible too. But in particular, a petition that meets the secretary's I'll say approval, then goes to the board and a hearing has to be scheduled on that petition.
But when the secretary receives the petition with all the signatures, and I forget, I'm trying to recall with the Bible where it's written. Do those signatures have to be people that are eligible to vote?
They have to be
Yes.
on the board at the
Okay, I
time.
just wanted to be sure that I didn't miss
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
We actually, we worked on that. I
Yeah.
think, as I recall, I think we did. some
I
tweaking.
thought so. I was trying to recall. My memory is not as sharp as it used to be.
So theoretically, the person, the board has a hearing to
Right.
discuss it. And somebody's going to get up and represent this petition to the
Right.
board.
That's what we're talking about.
And so, according to Steve's language, whoever that person is who's going to stand up and talk to the board has to be a member.
Right.
I mean, that's literally what it says. The representative of the petitioner shall be a member,
Right.
eligible to vote.
And
And was that the intent, or was it just that whoever initiates the petition?
I think it was both, because then further down, it says the assistant, any person who assists the representative does not have to be a member.
Right.
So
That's where it
that
came in.
expert that I'm bringing in, who maybe talks more specifically, if I'm gonna just say environmental issues or something like that, and that's what I have a petition about, and maybe I don't feel as confident that I can convey all of that information, so I bring my expert there. At that point, that person I bring with me does not have to be a member.
But the person that initiated the petition and
And then
collected the signatures is responsible for that
Right.
petition. And he should be allowed to bring in anybody with a level of expertise he wants.
Right.
But it should be limited to that person.
Right.
Okay,
Right. So the
the,
representative
And that's what
itself,
that's
should
what
still
Steve
be
was
in
trying to get at,
Yeah.
to make sure that it's narrowed down to that person. And it's up to him, whoever that
it still
individual is, at
ultimately
their
goes back to
expense,
that person who initiates
Right.
the
to help.
petition. But to state their case, they can bring in a non-member who maybe
Right.
has the expertise in
Yeah.
that area.
So just technically,
Mhm.
just assuming we don't know anything about this, then these two paragraphs do not align.
Right.
Because Steve's paragraph says the representative of the petitioners shall be a member eligible to vote. The attorney's recommendation is that it's a person who will represent the petitioners, not a member. Although it goes on to say, assuming that that's what they're talking about, normally this will be a member initiating petition. So it sounds to me like the attorney's recommendation is that the representative doesn't have to be a member. And in Steve's write-up, the representative does have to be a member.
okay,
So which is it?
Mhm.
What was when the board discussed this? What was their initial question? Was it about who initiated?
Well, that's there.
It was specifically, I get back here to the right place, it's specifically the wording where it says the petition shall identify the persons who will represent the petitioners.
Not the initiation, the representation.
There's no word in here that I see that says initiate. The rest of it goes on to details about not having to be notarized, signatures don't have to be notarized, you have to be eligible to vote, and so on.
Is that a charging document or is that your notes?
No, this is the bylaws.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the discussion from the board.
Oh, that's just my notes. Yeah, we did not, I guess, I don't recall now whether, I think we did issue the board a charging document, but we have not, other than what the board had to say at the meeting when they reviewed B07. That's the only thing we're going on. We don't have anything
Right.
in writing from the board.
Can we, Colette,
Yes,
do you recall this discussion at the board about this paragraph and what the board's concerns were with the wording? The question is, was the board's concern about who initiates the petition or who represents the petition?
yeah, I don't recall. Jim, do you know the date of the board meeting when this was discussed? I can go back and look at my notes. I think it's been a while.
23, 22,
Which month?
3, 23, 22.
323. I can go grab my notes real quick and see. My guess is that it had to do with that it was confusing as to whether, it's clear that the petitioners need to be members, but it was the person who represents the petitioner, the petition to the board, I think was the issue. Typically in board meetings, unless it's an outside vendor, for example, non-members can't speak during board meetings. Only members can. And so the discussion you had a few minutes ago about, if a petitioner, the one who's representing the petitioners, does not feel comfortable speaking in front of the board, that's what we're talking about, is somebody representing the representative. But let me grab my notes from that meeting and just see if I have anything. I'll be right back.
Like,
Okay, well,
they were on the sticking point with the actual representative, that the initiator is already a member, just because it most likely would have been that way. But then if it's presented at a board meeting, that representative who can do that speaking for them, that's not even the expert that we're talking about, to help assist their case. This is talking about the representative speaking on behalf of all, the initiator and all of the people who signed. Does that person need to also be a member in addition to the person who started the petition? And then as they're presenting their case, the way I'm taking it, the expert that we were talking about, that person doesn't have to be a member of our association. If they're helping, talk about, I don't know, whatever the environmental issue is, and, can better show why their case should be, taken in consideration or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's the way I'm reading what she's trying to say, is that both the initiator and the representative, in case they're two different people, both must be members. Whereas when you throw in that word normally, when they said, is the person who initiates the petition, you can't, I guess, assume that that representative is also going to be the same person who we know is a member who initiated it. So we're clarifying, can the representative, do they need to be a member? That's the way I'm
And
taking
what
it.
Colette just said is, except for members, nobody has the right to speak at a board
Right.
meeting.
So then
And
it's saying your representative can't be a non-member then and speak on behalf of those petitioners at a board meeting because they're not a member.
Colette's coming back here.
is it correct to say that the person initiating the petition is a petitioner? If you initiate a petition, you get other people to sign it.
Yeah,
Are you one of the petitioners? Because,
Sure.
yes.
so
Or
then,
you could, yeah.
okay, so then that makes more sense to me then. So just if, in that first sentence there, the petition must identify initiating a representative, the petitioners. So if the petitioners includes the person who initiates it, my
And
head's
they're all
starting,
members.
yeah, my head is starting to clear a little bit. So
Yeah, because
were you able to find your notes, Colette?
You're muted.
You're muted.
muted.
I'm sorry to say that the only note I have on here is the word revisit.
And I
guess that's what we're doing now.
Colette, I remember the last meeting, who was the last meeting, but in effect, at our last meeting, we decided to take the initiative and do something and bring it to the board, and that's what we're trying to do now.
Right. And
Is revisit it for the board, if nothing else.
Yeah, and I think that's what we had hoped would happen, is that you guys would drill down on this.
Yeah.
And so the board did not really have a position that I recall. I think And I don't recall Jeremy weighing in on this, but Jim, it sounds like you do.
Right.
Yeah.
'Cause I
got my paper
At
scattered
the, at the
everywhere.
last committee meeting,
Mhm.
my question was, did the board ask for some feedback from the committee? And the answer was yes.
Mhm.
And that was why we had the discussion.
Well, this,
And that would make sense with Colette's notes.
Steve's red paragraph now makes more sense to me.
Right.
I was not putting together that petitioners as a definition included the person who initiated the petition.
Mhm.
So now it makes more sense to me. And if the concern is, like Colette pointed out, that typically non-members don't get up to speak at the board,
Right.
then what he wrote makes sense.
Yeah.
That the representative of the petitioner, meaning the person who's going to stand up at the board, has got to be a member. But that person could be assisted by others who weren't necessarily members.
Right.
So that makes sense to me. So we'd come full circle.
But it helps clarify it all out and make sure that,
Let me-
yeah.
Colette,
Yeah, and I think if I could just comment, I think having it in a resolution in a way that's clear to the reader of the resolution really gives authority to the representative of the petitioner, or gives permission to the representative of the petitioners to bring an outside person before the board. Now, of course, the board will have to consent to having that on the agenda. But I think it is a way to give permission for that to happen. But it still is up to the board's discretion to allow it to happen in actuality.
Colette, in your emails, go back to July 20th. You apparently have referred this question to Jeremy. And what Jeremy came back with is that second subparagraph B that's in the, it's on the screen now.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that was his recommendation in response to you and I.
okay,
Yeah, it came back to directors, yourself and me were the addressees to his response.
yeah, so I think that, kind of fits with what I just said, that it gives permission to allow that person who assists the representative to not be a member, but still be allowed to speak before the board in a regular board meeting.
Let me kind of try to summarize a couple of things here as we go forward. One, there's an item. This is in the Steve Jacobs recommendation or draft, let me put it that way. The would be the third line from the bottom, the very bottom line of the association is very short. If you go up to two more lines where it says and or a special meeting, we're talking about representation. Special meeting is probably not a good term to use in there, because what the sequence again is the petition's initiated, it goes to the secretary, assuming the secretary finds it to be a valid petition. It then goes to the board, where the board has to effectively acknowledge the valid petition and then schedule a public hearing, not a special meeting of the membership. It's referred to, if I can find the right place in here. The board, this is on a proper referendum, proper petition submittal for referendum. The board of directors shall hold a public hearing on the proposal within 60 days after a valid petition is filed. So it's not a special meeting here. It's really a hearing, public hearing. It doesn't even say members public hearing, but it is a members public hearing, not a special members meeting. And if we're going to continue working with that version of the draft, I'll put it that way, that should be amended to take up special meeting of members. It's not a special meeting of members involved in the petition to referendum process.
It's really the required public hearing.
It's a required public hearing by the by the bylaws. But again, let's kind of summarize the process. We have a petition that's going to be initiated. And right now, the bylaws really don't say anything about initiating, but it goes on to say person representing the petitioners. So we have the initiation of the petition, and as the petition goes forward through the signature cycle, then it's going to come before the secretary. And if the secretary finds it's valid, it's going to go to the board of directors, which they really have to, it's already been accepted as valid by the secretary, and that's the secretary's responsibility in the bylaws. But the board then has to schedule a public hearing, so it'll go to the public hearing, and then after the public hearing, it's going to go, the valid petition will go to a referendum. So you've got initiation, you've got the petition process, then you've got perhaps interface with the secretary, and whatever possible interface with the board of directors of a valid petition. And then finally, you will have a public hearing, which may be the more likely place of significant representation. But all throughout there is what we're talking about is who can do it. Well, who can do it? Member or non-member, not non-member, whichever, through that entire process. Because I'm Steve, geez.
So in 4.07, and this is probably, my copy that I have is probably the one that was before this last referendum.
Yeah,
So some of the language may be different.
I don't, the change didn't affect what we're talking about.
But 407 says a petition may be used to propose action requiring a referendum, comma, to call for a special meeting of the members, comma, to include an issue for consideration by the members in the notice of an annual meeting of the members, comma, or to request action by the board of directors. So what I always understood how this worked is if once the petition gets to the board and the board looks at it, let's say it's a petition for something really simple. It's kind of a no-brainer situation, right? That maybe it's something that should have always been done, just didn't get done. And the board looks at this and goes, yeah, this is a no-brainer. This is something we should do. And they just decide to take action on it and do it. Then there wouldn't be a meeting.
Or a public hearing or any of
Right.
that, right?
My understanding is the reason for the meeting would be if the board of directors looked at it and said, we don't agree with this.
Right.
Then you have to go to a meeting, bring the membership in and have it discussed. That's how, in other words, there wouldn't always be a meeting is how I thought it worked, depending on what the board decided to do.
It's that word normally that messes me up,
Mhm.
because what popped in my head just now is that in a way you're saying, I can see a sentence being added. Normally, it will be a petition that most likely the board doesn't agree with. That's why there was a petition in the first place, because it's something that wasn't already being done, that everybody agreed upon. And then that's why you have the rest of the steps listed out, the hearing and the public hearing and all of that.
And this,
But your point is very valid too, that maybe something comes up, somebody said, we're gonna make it formal, do the petition, and the board does agree with them. Do they still need to go through the public portion of it, the whole rest of the process, before the board can officially say, yes, you're right, we can take action on this and do it?
because this calls it a special meeting, 407, special meeting of the members. And it sounds to me like it's
Because you're gonna do that process. no
1,
matter what.
2, 3, 4 possibilities, right? Petition may be calling for a referendum. The petition may be calling for a special meeting of members. The petition may be saying, please put this on the annual meeting agenda, for
Mhm.
discussion. Or the petition could be saying, hey, board of directors, you need to do this. I mean, that's how I'm reading 407.
Yeah, we've kind of extended this to a point where we've we're going to have trouble coming to a conclusion here, because the perhaps without
Maybe to your concern, Jim, we just delete in Steve's red lines. We just delete everything after board of directors. So in other words, the representative of the petitioners may be assisted by others when the petition is considered by the board of directors, period.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
And take out the.
because no matter what, it goes to the board of directors,
Yeah,
right?
let me try to explain or clarify my hesitation as to where we are right now. B07 in particular, although it's not, it can be read differently, but B07 in particular is thought of in terms of going to referendum, whereas the 4.07 paragraphs in the bylaws deal not solely with referendums. They deal with calling a special meeting, for example, and also the first one to request action by the board of directors is not requiring a referendum. Is a significantly less number of signatures required. B07, and frankly, I am not familiar with there ever having been a petition drive of any kind other than for referendum. The 100 signatures required to get a question to the board that doesn't require a referendum, I don't think that's ever been used. When I say never been used, I'm talking about in my personal time. And the third one, to call a special meeting, I don't know if there's ever been a special meeting of members called for any reason by anyone, the board president or otherwise, in the almost 20 years that I've been here. So B07 has been in particular oriented toward referendums. And that really, I think, is, if we want to go back, or we need to go back and look at these others, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, we may need to spend some more time thinking about this. Again, I'm reluctant to try to resolve these other petition, in particular the one that doesn't require a petition for a question that doesn't require a referendum. That's a completely different topic than the referendum topic.
I think the question was just on this resolution. And if it's going to go to petition, can somebody come in to represent? Forget where, how, or when. Can somebody else that has the expertise help represent it to the board?
Well,
and the board's question was it the committee to look at?
Trying to figure out how I want to say what I want to say. Okay, the most of perhaps it's not the right way to say that. I'll have to retract what I was going to start to say. What we're talking about in particular, and I'm not saying we should limit it to this, but what we're talking about in particular is a petition for a referendum question. And it doesn't, what's in here perhaps doesn't really, for example, the suggested draft, the Steve's suggested draft pertains specifically to referendum. You're not going to have you're not going to have, probably are not going to have much interest in a representation of a question that does not require a referendum. The 100 signature situation, and the situation for calling a special member meeting of members, you either got the right number of signatures or you don't. If you have the 15%, I believe that's the number, 15% of the votes, signatures represented, There's gotta have to be a special meeting. The secretary is gonna do nothing other than validate the number of signatures. So that the representation part, at least in the special meeting part, is not applicable, and I don't know why it would be applicable in the request action by the directors when a referendum is not required. But hopefully I'm not confusing this.
No, I understand what you're saying. We can answer this question like Bob was saying today. If we think that at some point we need to go back and look at 4.07 against resolution B, we can make that a separate thing. But for today's purposes, to answer this question for the board, and I'm only addressing what you brought up, Jim, about the term, the wording in there of a special meeting.
Right.
That having listened to what you just said then, I would suggest shorten it even more and just say the representative of the petitioners may be assisted by others, period. Any person who assists a representative of petitioners need not be a member of the association. And just delete that when the petition is considered by the board of directors at a special, just delete all that.
I think,
Because that would cover any situation, right? Even if you had something really simple where you were, that fell under one of these other examples.
Yeah.
If you still wanted to go out and get some subject matter expert to help you on the issue, you can do that, right? So.
Hang on for a second. What you're suggesting or recommending, whatever, that where it says the representative of petitioners may be assisted by others, period. And then you delete.
When the petition through meeting of the membership. In other words, delete the remainder of that sentence.
That's right.
yeah,
And keep the last sentence.
And then keep the last sentence, right?
in the 20 years I've been here, it's
Right.
only ever happened 2 or 3 times where we've been petitions. And we're kind of tilting windmills. I mean, you want to be clear,
Right.
but I'm not sure you gain a whole lot other than this clarifies that you can bring an expert in
Right.
to assist you, but you have to, as a member,
You still have to do the initial.
you need
work
to
of
represent it
all
and be
the other-
responsible for it.
I agree.
Okay, let's, all right, we've taken from the, we're leaving in, I mean, rephrase it. Where it starts, the representative of the petitioners may be assisted by others, period, and then delete the rest of the sentence and keep the last sentence. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Where
Well,
are we?
we're keeping the first sentence of the red as well.
The representative of the
The
petition.
representative of the petitioner shall be a member eligible to vote. We're keeping that sentence.
Right.
All right, now I'm going backwards.
Sorry.
Okay.
All right, we're good up to that point. How about the leaving the black the way it is? That is a part of the current provision, by the way.
I think if we're adding the red to the black,
Clarifies it.
I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think so, because it's clarifying what the initiating person is.
You wouldn't want the black part
Yeah.
just by itself.
Yeah,
Right.
but that says that it has to be a member eligible to
Yeah.
vote, period,
Yeah.
end sentence. And
Okay.
can they bring somebody else in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Period.
All right,
I agree.
No,
I agree with that.
I'm okay with that.
All right. Let's make sure where we're at. What we are doing is taking this B, which I will read again.
You want
Taking this B and we will put it in a draft first reading submittal, which I will send to
Right.
Colette.
Okay.
right,
All right, now let me, just so we all understand here. Subparagraph, or not subparagraph, but subparagraph D. Our draft will be initiation of petitions. Petition. The petition must identify the persons initiating the petition and the persons who will represent the petitioners. Normally, this will be the persons initiating a petition. The representative of the petitioner shall be a member eligible.
caller.
I'm not sure what happened there.
Keep going.
Sorry, that was me. I'll turn my mic off.
I'm starting again up with the red. The representative of the petitioner shall be a member eligible to vote.
Carry.
The representative of the petitioners may be assisted by others.
Period.
Any person who assists the representative of the petitioners need not be a member of the association.
Yeah.
What I will do is make the necessary changes to what you have before you and leave it in draft form, and I will forward it to Colette as our proposed first reading and you guys will get copies as well. Okay.
That's it.
All right, where are we on? Where are we here?
I,
It's tilting with that, so I gotta look that one up.
it's good you didn't PO7 or moving that enough time.
Right,
Right,
exactly.
The next two items can go together. Colette, these are questions for you in particular. On C09, we've previously asked for a review of that. That's the executive council. And that's in recognition of the fact that there won't be an executive council meeting until perhaps 2-3 months from now. And M07 has been discussed at the board meeting, and there was talk of referring it to the Maritime Advisory Committee. And there were also comments about should some of the material in that resolution be incorporated in the ARC guidelines, because it's things that dock owners would have to do when the bulkheads were replaced. Neither of those are actually in charging documents. Can we leave it that way, or do we need to send you a charging document? Well, a reason why I'm bringing this up is we're in a transition of one kind or another. Obviously, we're in transition with me leading the committee and me being interested in making sure that we transition over with necessary documentation.
Yeah, those are good questions. I referred the review of CO9 to the work group subgroup of the executive council that was looking at the application process for committee membership and the application form, and they agreed to take this up. Now I can go back and find my email on that, and that could be the documentation. I will do that after this meeting. I'll look for the email. And if we have that email, I would say no. No charging document is required, that my email would essentially be the charging document. And then M07, that was that same meeting, wasn't it, March?
I think so.
Yeah, let me look at my notes. I thought that there was no recommendation to update M07, but I think you guys had brought up the issue that it should be included in the depository in Snow Hill. Is that correct?
That might have been M04. That's the one that deals with going out and cutting the weeds in the grass that's too high.
Yeah.
No, let me look in my emails real quick, because Jeremy sent me some stuff that was in the depository, and I think it had to do with this, that it had been deposited, and he sent me the date stamp of that, but let me see if I can find that email.
Okay, the M07 discussion was at the March 23rd board meeting.
Yes. So let me see what he sent me. It may not be, he sends me a lot of emails, so it may not be easy to
We have a
find.
Maritime Advisory.
Oh, here it is, HOA depository. Okay, so no, that was, okay, there's another one. That was the amended and restated bylaws he sent me. And earlier there was something else.
But it's slightly different than that.
Here we go.
Don't get scattered here. I don't, you don't anymore. What's the name of the Marine Advisory Committee for the Marine?
It's on there somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Marine Advisory Activity Committee.
But what do they do?
Marine Activities Advisory Committee.
Yeah, that's
Is it for like
the
the
waterways, to make sure we stay in compliance, looking for, I don't know what else, without reading it, I forget what they're responsible for. But the big issue with the bulkheads is if you own a boat lift and you spend 15 grand to have it installed, you're gonna have the contractor come out and move it at your expense so they can do the bulkhead and then put it back. And it's not clearly defined. And
Yeah, I'm not finding this email.
the Maryland law is that you can do it yourself once you've had a contractor install it. But if you have another contractor and do it, he has to be approved by the Marine Advisory Committee, which is the state of Maryland. Because I've had all kinds of problems dealing with that at the Marine.
So, Jim, I guess this question of, I lost my agenda here that I had up. This MO7. Let me just double check that Linda probably knows if it's in the depository. If it was, based on your recommendation, put in the depository,
And you have
issue is handled. If not, I will get back to you, and there probably should be a charging document just to close the loop.
in years.
Okay.
I stole my votes.
All right, the next. Okay, I'll take care of M07 and C09 both, and
Yeah.
for our current production, if you're gonna send me some information
You
on
got the
both
federal
of them.
government.
M0, what's the other one I'm sending you information on?
C09.
Oh, right. Okay. Yep. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going here to the next item. The next item is just to try to find out where we are on these two resolutions, in particular the M01. And that's relative to the recent, I'll call it recent due process legislation. At the annual meeting on Saturday, you made reference to that being a challenge, upcoming challenge to the board, and in consultation with the association council. You know, who is M01 in particular is affected by that legislation, and it goes into effect in 5.5, 6 weeks from now, or at least by the October meeting of the board. And M02 to a lesser extent in the context of amenities. And the question is, where are we on that? Who's doing something, if anything, on consideration of that legislation on the verge of going into effect?
Yes, good question. And I believe it's in Jeremy's hand to send a draft. Let me look and see if I have an email on that. Here.
This committee interest is in particular to resolutions that are effective. We're not we're not sitting here with our pens and pencils and paper.
Yeah, so
Right.
actually, I just found the email I sent to Jeremy about BO7, and he did not send me an answer.
Okay,
And so here is HB 651. That was my request for his advice as to whether we should have discussed it at the July 27th meeting. And he appears not to have responded, but maybe he did. And I'm looking at my sent items. Look at my received items. So both of these are on Jeremy's radar. It's a good question as to where he is in addressing them. He's been, first of all, he has COVID right now. And secondly, he has been focused on the Janicek case and getting the new directors up to speed on that and assisting our council with that. So I think that anything else has been kind of put on the back burner. Okay, here's his answer to BO7. Yeah, I think he didn't understand the question. He agrees with what you guys wrote, and that is the petitioner and the representation of the petition must be a member. But what he wasn't understanding is that the representation of the petitioners or assistance to the representation could be provided by the they could ask for assistance by somebody who's not a member. So I think what you guys did is consistent with what you did the right thing. So let me go back in and see the rest of these emails from him. Let's see. I don't know if you guys want to hold up your meeting while I do this, because I've got a lot of emails to go through.
that's okay. The next couple of items are involve you as well.
Yeah, okay, so I'm not seeing an email about the legislation that he has responded to my request to give us some guidance on that. I think I maybe told him in a phone conversation that we'll put that on the back burner until the more urgent stuff is taken care of. So are you asking if we should have a charging document for that, or what is your?
I don't know the charging document from us would add anything to it.
No, so I
it's-
think what we need, I need to just follow up with Jeremy about the implementation. Because that, theoretically is gonna become an issue pretty soon.
Yeah, if something comes to the board after October 1st in a sanction situation, even the most recent board meetings where the suspension of the vote was voted on, that you wouldn't have to be able to do that after October 1st without following the provisions of the legislation. At least that's
Right.
my understanding. Let's put it that way.
Yes. And so I will follow up with him on that right away, see where he is with that.
Okay, the next two unfinished business items, I think we're going to step right through them. The M06 resolution was amended to pick up the remote voting or electronic voting. Let me put it that way better. I think it's better reference to electronic at the June board meeting, but the approved resolution is not yet in the book of resolutions. It's not been signed and in the book of resolutions. That's you know, I have personally not communicated with anyone on that. I don't believe I should necessarily be communicating directly with, I guess it would be Linda Martin, but I don't,
Yeah,
I'm
you're
hesitant.
right. So I'll follow up on that as well.
Okay. The last item on the B03, that, if I have it correct, at the June 27th meeting, consideration of the virtual meeting for the annual meeting was in a draft form of B03, but tabled to be able to figure out how to actually log people in. But that B03 is still out there for further action. That's
Okay,
that's just a basically a comment reminder from the from this committee that that's it's a charging document is still out there and was issued before consideration of the virtual meeting, but consideration was given to B03, but tabled. That is still tabled. Let's put it that way.
right. And I'm trying to think, I believe that we did an emailed vote on that, but I'll have to check on that. How we resolved that, because it was, you know, we agreed on the process, I believe by email vote, but you're right, it was not incorporated into B03, which is what should happen. Is that what you're saying, Jim? That
Yeah, if that's been done by the email vote, then the
okay,
version should be up for signature then.
okay, so I'll check on that too. Well, I'm glad we have you guys keeping us on top of all this stuff. It's a lot to keep track of.
Okay, moving right along, I'm going to take the items in the agenda. M09, the only thing there, and again, I'm hesitant to email the search committee chair, but there's a search committee report that's was due June 30th, and it doesn't show anywhere.
Okay. I think that they did send us a report, but so it was due when, June 30th?
Yeah, what I'm using as a reference is the search committee committee
Right.
page. It doesn't show a report having been submitted.
Yeah, I'll check on that too. I don't, yeah, I'll check on that.
Okay, the item that was added to the agenda is the future of this committee. Let me give a little background, which I think all of us know. We do have an actual vacancy now. Steve Jacobs was elected to the board of directors and is in fact on the board now. You don't have to wait to the organization meeting as long as the election is validated. So he is not now a member of the committee, and we have a vacancy. The four members are what the four of us sitting here now. My term ends into September. I will be here. We're scheduled to have another meeting on the 16th of September, and my term ends that day. Well, not the 16th. It ends after the 16th.
Not until 3:01 p.m. No.
Maybe I would try to get the end on the 15th. And Bob's term on the committee ends in October.
Right.
So as it stands right now, we're going to be down to 3 members by mid-October. There has been some recent interest. However, there's no current applications have been received. I'll just leave that part of it at that as that. So we got a couple of things ahead of us. Number one, somebody's going to have to step up to be chair between now and at least September 20th or September 17th. I'm sorry. We need somebody to come forward. I'm not asking for somebody to make make a move right now, but the position of chair is coming open. And the other thing, Keith, if you would, we need you to reapply. Your term ends at the end of this month,
Oh, yeah.
okay? And that
Is there something I need to do or?
Yeah, you need to fill out an application.
You gotta-
Oh, okay.
you gotta submit an
It-
application and
It comes to me and then it'll go to,
Oh, I got you. Okay.
all right?
Please.
That's, I don't have much else to say other than that.
I have a tissue.
And so both you and Bob are not going to be applying for another extension.
we can't apply.
Yeah,
We're term limited.
we're term limited.
We serve
Well, how many terms have you served?
3,
This is the end of the third.
including.
Okay,
we serve-
So in practice, what has happened is if there's a committee that doesn't have enough members or is not full, and people who are finishing their third term would be willing to continue, the board has authorized year-to-year extensions based on the wish of those members. So my question is, and you don't have to answer today, would either of you wish or consider another year?
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, my situation is real simple. I don't mind doing what I'm doing. I wouldn't accept a chair, and I would serve until you found a replacement. But short of that,
Okay,
that's all I have to say.
okay,
Colette, Bob's pretty well said the same thing I would say. I don't think I want to continue as chair, and I would continue. I don't want to say as required, but I would not
Until it's
commit to a
filled.
full year.
excuse me, you would,
I would not commit to a full year.
okay, and that's essentially what you're saying, Bob, also.
Well,
I
because you want to find a replacement. And if I say I'm going to stay for a year, then you got to wait and we're back right where we were. So as soon as you find a qualified replacement and the board approves it,
Okay,
it's all the replacement and accept my resignation.
and so the maximum number for this
5.
is 5, okay.
For a minimum of 3, maximum of 5.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so at this point, without the two of you, you have
2.
2.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, thank you guys for staying on until we get at least one more person.
You
Yeah.
reapply, would you
Yeah,
want to
but
be
we-
chairperson?
You know, as I say, we need a new
I don't
chair
mind doing chair.
because Jim is burned out. He's been on this committee, I
Yeah.
think, different times for 6 years each.
I
Yeah,
don't mind doing it.
So I can't continue.
Yes, no, I understand that. Jim, you have done a yeoman's job of this, chairing of this committee for many, many years. And I know the boards that you have that have been seated during your tenure have been extremely grateful for the work, the leadership that you've given this committee and the work this committee has done.
Thank you. Further discussion here amongst the board member, I'm sorry. Another reason why my time is up. Committee members.
I think we're in agreement that I would be willing to handle the chairperson stuff if I know I have resources and backup to help put in place what is required and, make sure I've got the format and all that stuff. I don't mind doing that kind of stuff and helping to lead a meeting and things like that. That's not what Keith wants to do. But, if I know that I've got experienced people to rely on for a little while until we can fill the rest of the board, I would be willing to help you with that.
If extended or otherwise, I don't plan on completely disappearing and helping in a transition. Let's put it that way.
Thank you.
Okay, so Laura, what I'm hearing you say then is that you are willing to step up as chair.
After they're done, yes.
No, I
No,
think
just
what
now.
they're saying is that they're willing to stay on, but not as chair until we have at least 3. And
Right.
so am I understanding that correctly, Jim, that you're ready to pass the torch?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
It's fine. I meant
Okay.
that, the September meeting should still be chaired by the current chairperson. You know,
Okay,
and then in the unofficial extension,
yeah, I
then.
go along with the extension and I yield to Jim. He can go first. He served more time than I have. But as soon as you have up to 5 people, then it's fair that I get off the committee because you can only have 5.
okay. And so, so we'll continue to advertise, vacancies
For 3.
for 3. And so Laura, the board will not be having another regular meeting until probably 3rd week of September. I'm going to say we don't have our meeting schedule set. It won't be set until next Thursday evening. So may I go ahead then in the September board meeting, put your name forward to the new president, whoever that is.
Sure, that's fine.
I don't know that I'll continue to be liaison either, because that will be up to the new president. So, so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. I will take responsibility for putting that forward as soon as we know who the new president is going to be.
Okay.
Okay?
Fine. Yep.
Okay.
Go.
Okay, any further discussion on this item or any other item? Okay, Susan, we don't formally have any media questions, but do you have any questions for us?
No, I'm filling in for Ocean City today and trying to figure out what's going on. So I might have questions later. If it will be okay, if I can maybe email you gentlemen, if I do, I'd like to go over my notes first, if that's okay.
That would be fine, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, if there's no other business, any motion to adjourn?
Do we have public comment?
Well, if there are more public comments, we've had it once, in addition to the media, any more public comments, public comments? Okay, hearing none, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Keep
Okay,
it-
thank you, guys.